Master of Ceremonies, Keith Farmer.
Thank you so much. 5th year. How about this? We've inducted 4 already, and we got the 5th one going in this year. It's awesome. Look, we got a lot of athletes in here, and I know me and Keith Taylor, we go cover UK all the time, and one of the questions we asked, do you have any games circled on the calendar? And they all lie to us, and they tell us, no, nothing circled on the calendar, right? I know you got to ask that, right, Luke? And he probably said, no, nothing circled, but I know he liked coming to Kentucky, and I know Alabama was circled and all that. So this night is one that I've got circled on the calendar. I'm so excited to be among people that, mean so much to me and my upbringing here in Richmond, and also just I was going to name some of the people that I went to school with that I saw come through, and there's like 4 or 5 of us that graduated together, but then I started seeing others, and I'm not leaving anybody out. I'm not going to get in trouble on the 5th year because I want to keep doing this into the 6th year. We're going to get started tonight with the teams inductions. So I'm going to bring up Jim Coy, and he's going to tell you a little bit about this first team that we're inducting tonight.
Thank you, Keith. 65 years, guys, I can't believe it. Some of the guys are sitting over here. When you just go this long, there's not many left, but bless their hearts for being here. General Douglas MacArthur once said, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And that's true with all of us. The wonderful thing about the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame is it allows us once again to bring back into focus some of those elite athletes and teams that have or are slowly fading into faint memories and onto the dusty shelves of history. Such is the case of the 1960-61 football teams of Madison-Model and Richmond-Madison, as those days of glory are now 65 years ago. With the inclusion of Coach Roy Kidd's 60-61 football teams into the Hall of Fame, 4 out of the 6 high school football teams that he coached are now in the Hall of Fame. The first 2 years, 56, 57, and some of those players are here this evening, and now the 60 and 61 teams. Now, there's some interesting facts about these 2 teams. 4 individuals associated with the 60 and 61 teams are already in the Sports Hall of Fame here because of individual athletic achievements. Of course, head coach Roy Kidd, but along with players, halfback Freddie Blue, quarterback Talbot Todd, and quarterback Monty Joe Lovell for his outstanding record as a head coach of Richmond-Madison football. All these great guys are now deceased. 3 players on the 60-61 teams have relatives already in the Madison County Hall of Fame, and that's Earl Combs III, who's the grandson of Cooperstown Hall of Famer, New York Yankee great Earl Combs Sr., who played with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Big James Bosley, who's the father of Little Keith Bosley. Where is Little Keith? There you are. Little Keith, I played with his dad. He was one hell of a football player, I want to tell you that. And Kerry Woolham, who's the younger brother of Jerry Woolham. Now, the story of the 60-61 team started in 1957. That's the year that Coach Roy Kidd started the Little League football program, consisting of 7th and 8th graders. The success of the 60-61 teams amazingly started in 1959. The players were so young that it was basically a junior varsity team because just 2 years prior, 7 of the starters were playing Little League football, sprinkled with a couple of seniors. These young players of 1959 would later be the major players of the 60-61 teams. I'm sorry, I'm going to take too much time, but I want to mention some names because we won't be hearing them anymore. And thanks to the Hall of Fame people for allowing this. At left end was sophomore Johnny Collins. At left tackle was a freshman, Ben Robinson. At left guard was a sophomore, Jimmy Congleton. At center was a backup center, freshman, Conley Congleton. At right tackle, junior Jimmy Cormney. At right end, defensive end, Big James Bosley. At quarterback, sophomore Talbot Todd. At halfback, sophomore Freddie Blue and junior Sonny West. The fans and everybody else in the state thought this young team would probably not win any games. However, this young team won 4 of the first 7 games, with 2 of their 3 losses being to teams ranked in the top 10 in the state. And then, folks, an amazing thing happened. The last 3 games of that 1959 season, they outscored the opponents 94-7. It was the beginning, 1959 was the beginning of a 27-game win streak that lasted 2.5 years. Of all the 6 years that Roy Kidd was head coach, I think that young team of 59 was the most challenging and thus his best year of coaching. I know, because I had the honor to be their captain and fullback, and that's why I'm here. I did not play on the 60 and 61 teams, but they think I'm an old man. The 1960 team, the winning streak that started in 59 continued into the 60 season as the Purples won their first 3 games. And then another incredible thing happened. No other team scored a single point on the Purples the remaining 7 games of the regular season. It got to the point that opposing teams considered it a success if they could just score against this team. And in the final game of the 1960 season, the Purples handily defeated Mount Sterling for the CKC championship in front of 5,000 fans at the old Hangar Stadium on Eastern's campus to finish the season with 11 wins and no losses. Sonny West in that championship game had 230 yards rushing, unheard of at that time, until Damien came along. Junior Freddie Blue would crush the single-season scoring record of 147 points. Senior Sonny West and Freddie Blue would each have over 1,200 yards rushing. Nobody in the state had 2 quicker or faster halfbacks than Freddie and Sonny. Junior quarterback Talbot Todd became an efficient passer, tough runner, and superb leader. Junior defensive end James Bosley was hard to block and a ferocious tackler. Juniors Conrad Long, Jimmy and Jerry Congleton, Johnny Collins. Sophomores Ben Robinson, Conley Congleton. Sophomores David Rivers, Charlie Brown, John Davidson, all were solid contributors. These guys just went undefeated, and 90% of these players were coming back for the 61 season. So you can imagine the extremely high expectations. Now, all you great athletes in this room know that when you're the underdog in the competition, it puts a little more fire in your belly. But when you're expected to win, and you have been winning, you can tend to start just going through the motions, especially if you're a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. Not if you played for Coach Roy Kidd. Coach Roy Kidd instilled in his players to play as if they were always behind. And these overdogs always played as underdogs every minute of every quarter. The 1961 team, indeed, after thrashing a very good Henry Clay team 40-0 in the second game of the 61 season, Richmond-Madison became the #1 ranked team in the state over all the Lexington schools, over all the Louisville schools in any division. The 61 team continued to dominate and go undefeated, and after 8 games, Coach Roy Kidd's Purples had stretched their winning streak to 22 games. Then they played an undefeated Elizabethtown team in the Recreation Bowl. Many thought that E-Town had a chance to not only score on this team, but win. Final score, Richmond-Madison 39, Elizabethtown 0. Talbot Todd was named Most Valuable Player, but no truer words were spoken than his acceptance speech when he said, "I don't know how you fellas pick a most valuable player on this team because they are all valuable." Famous Highlands coach Richmond-Madison stated, "Richmond-Madison is the best team in the state." In their next game, November 9th, 1961, Madison defeated the strong Lafayette team 33-0. But in mid-game, Freddie Blue sustained a fracture in his lower spine. His high school football career was over. With the loss of Freddie Blue, senior fullback George Adams carried a huge load in carrying the Purples through the playoffs and stretched their winning record to 27 straight games. But after playing 8 games in 35 days, the injuries, especially to Freddie Blue, and the weather finally defeated this team as they lost to Highlands in a sea of mud in the AA state championship game against Highlands. Conrad Long, Johnny Collins, Charlie Brown, John Davidson, David Roberts were all starters. Also contributing were Earl Combs, William Ray Salyer, Harry Long. Due to injuries, even freshman fullback Kerry Woolen was pushed into the starting lineup. The 1961 Courier-Journal All-Star team, not in divisions, but overall, first team, Talbot Todd. Second team, James Bosley, Freddie Blue. Honorable mention, Conley Conklin, Ben Robinson, Jimmy Conklin, Bobby Oglesby. 7 players making All-State. Talbot Todd would have an outstanding football career at UK. Fullback George Adams would go on and have a terrific career at Morehead State. The next year, David Rivers would go on and make first-team All-State and have a solid career playing football at West Point and make an All-American team playing lacrosse. Little Freddie Blue did play in one more football game, the East-West All-Star game, in the summer of 1961, along with Talbot Todd. You see, Freddie had signed a full football scholarship to play for Eastern, but decided it was time to hang it up. It would be the last football game that this terrific, gutsy Kentucky State Athletic Association and Madison County Hall of Fame halfback would play for the rest of his life. By the way, Freddie Blue was the leading ground gainer in that all-star game. Legendary Mount Sterling basketball and football coach Bain Tiny Jones was involved in Kentucky high school teaching and coaching for 51 years. And in 1961, he said, "This 1961 Madison football team is the best high school football team that he had ever seen." So in 1961, the Roy Kidd High School football coaching career came to an end. Coach Kidd took a group of Little League football players, little boys, and turned them into men. I apologize for taking the time to mention so many of these players' names, but most of them have passed away, and I just wanted you to hear some of their names one more time. And they all would congratulate all of you new inductees and be honored in joining you in this year's Hall of Fame class. And they would tell me, "Jim, Damien Harris and Luke Stocker were much better football players than we ever were. Just sit down and shut up." Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And as I call out the names of those that are accepting the honor tonight, if you'll just come right up this way. We've got the certificates over here, and we're going to have you stand up front. And then I think we're going to take a picture over here in front of the balloons here. So those that we're going to present tonight, Earl Combs, accepted by daughter Libby. Okay. William Ray Salyer. Not here. John Davison? He's here. All right. There we go. Just come right through here. Conrad Long. Saw him. Harry Long. George Adams. John Collins. Jimmy Moberly, not here. And Monty Joe Lovell, accepted by his brother John.
Keith Bosley's here for his dad.
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure. All right, and we'll get little Boz up here for James Bosley. Just go around. All right, the 1960 and 61 football teams, Madison-Model High School. Thanks, guys. All right, the next team we're going to honor is the 2012-2013 state championship basketball team from Madison Central. Yeah, this is a really cool one because for me, I remember where I was on the road. At the time I was working in Louisville, and I can't remember if it was Indiana or Louisville I was covering, but I remember keeping up with video and watching as Kenja hit that shot with 2.2 seconds left and realizing that Madison Central had its state championship finally. All right, let's get to the players. Kenja Bosley. It's there. It's there. Chris Connor. DeMarcus George. Still, I believe the youngest individual that has been inducted to the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, Dominique Hawkins. Griffin Hotchkiss. Kirkland Humphrey. Sam Jones. Daniel Park. Ross Ramsey. Don Stocker. Oh, Hunter, you got both of them on here, Coach.
I always wanted to be a stalker, but I never made it.
Sorry, Hunter. Coach put two on here. Quan Taylor. George Walker. Devin Cox. Dante Cox. You think about this too. This is probably the first time you guys have been together for a while, right? As a group, is this the first time you all been together like this? That's pretty cool. Scorekeeper, Don Barker. Statistician, Anthony Hendricks. Assistant coach and current principal at Madison Central, Brandon Fritz. The assistant coach, Kenny Roberts. And head coach, Alan Feldhouse Jr. And I think Coach is going to be up here once they take a picture. He's going to talk about this team. As he's doing that, I'm going to let you know that I should have said this earlier, but this is one of those kind of relaxed nights, so we want you to really enjoy this. And just, if you feel like it gets too hot in here, you want to take your jacket off, feel free. Get up and go where you need to go.
Zach Jarvis.
Yeah. Oh, did I leave? Is he here?
I don't know.
Was Zach Jarvis here? No. Okay, we had three that weren't here. Cody Alexander, Zach Jarvis, and Kyle Congleton. So, but. This is also usually the longest part of the night, so don't worry, okay? I know you've seen all this take place. This is usually the longest part.
It's hard to believe it's been 13 years. I think this is the first time that we've all been back together since then. So I know it's very special for me. But on behalf of our entire team, I want to thank the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame for this induction. I can't think of a more deserving group than these young men right here. I could talk about these guys for a long time, but I'm going to try to I'll make it short and sweet. At Madison Central, we take a lot of pride in our basketball program of keeping our guys, holding them accountable for all their actions, both on the floor and off the floor. And I think Coach Roberts and Coach Fritz would agree with me. These guys made us earn our money. I promise you that. There was a lot of accountability issues that we dealt with over the years. There was a lot of tough love that we dealt with over the years, but as I look back on it now, I really think that's what made these guys so successful, especially that championship year, because if you look at how many basketball games throughout that year that we had to come from behind to win, there were a lot. And I want to give you a couple examples. And our schedule that year was brutal. The King of the Bluegrass, which is the most prestigious tournament in Louisville. Of course, we were invited to that before Christmas, and our first two games were against Louisville schools. And when you go to Louisville and play against Louisville schools, believe me, it's not always easy. The first game was against Louisville St. X. We were down double digits in the first half. And with about 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, 4 out of my 5 starters had fouled out, including Dominique had fouled out. The only one that was left, and these guys remember this, was Kenja. And Kenja played with a 102-degree fever that entire game and really hadn't done that much up to that point because he felt horrible. But I had 4 JV players in there. Kenja hits a midcourt shot to put us into overtime, and then he carries us through the overtime and we win. I think he had 4 points with 2 minutes left to go in the regulation, and he ended up with 24 points. So that's just one example. The next night we played Fairdale down by 5 with less than a minute to go. We came back and win. And then, of course, a lot of you probably remember our last 3 games in the state tournament, playing against teams that all had won 30 games. Our quarterfinal game against Covington Holmes, we came from a double-digit deficit to win in overtime. Our semifinal game, we played Hopkinsville, who was a 32-game winner. We came from a double-digit deficit behind to win that game. And believe me, some of the adversity that we had to deal with didn't just always happen off the floor, some of it on the floor. One great example, and I'll embarrass him here a little bit, the semifinal game, the state tournament, we're playing, that year we actually played the semifinals on Saturday night and the finals were on Sunday. We had our walkthrough, our shoot around before we played Hopkinsville. I think we're supposed to be at school at 3 or 4. We're all there at 3 o'clock, ready to go over our final instructions, except for our center. And our center was not there yet. Y'all remember this, guys? And he finally shows up about 10 minutes through our walkthrough. I didn't really say anything to him because I didn't want to hear his excuse. And I basically just said, Quan, you're not starting. I think DeMarcus, didn't you start DeMarcus? DeMarcus started. There were no questions. Quan knew he messed up. We won the game. Everybody's celebrating after the game is over with in the locker room. And then finally I said in front of everybody, Quan, why were you late for our shoot-around? And some of you might remember the semifinal game and the final game, Quan had neon green socks on. And that was his excuse, Coach, I didn't have any socks. I had to go to Dunham's to give me some socks to wear to the game. So I said, all right, we got through it. I said, but here's what's going to happen. You will not be late tomorrow because you're going home with me. You're spending the night with me, which that wasn't the first time Quan had spent the night with me, but it's funny how things work out. The championship game, for the first 3 quarters of that game, Quan was the difference. He was the difference in the game, and probably one of my favorite moves of all time when we called an ISO play for him in the post. He called it and he pivoted 5 times, I think, before he stuck it in. Still, well, 3. I exaggerated a little bit. Yeah, I'm 63 now, so I can exaggerate a little bit. So that was special. And of course, the final game down, what was it, Don Bob? 16 points in the third quarter. Yeah. 32 seconds left. I watched it. Believe me, I've watched it many times before, but I did watch it again this morning. 32 seconds left to go in the game. We're still down by 5. And then, of course, I like to think maybe we were a team of destiny. We got this. George makes the steal. We're down by 2. It took George. George, raise your hand there. It took George Walker 0.25 seconds to find Dominique. Got Dominique the basketball. Dominique starts to do his thing, gets tripped. And I think this is where destiny comes into play a little bit too. The ball just so happens to go into Kenja's hands, one of our best three-point shooters. And Kenja executed a move that we do in practice every single day in our partner shooting. Our pass fake, jab step, crossover, one dribble shot. It's exactly what he did. Hit the 3. Nothing but nets, and then, of course, we win the basketball game. So I will say this. I think, and I've said it many times before, we not only had the opportunity to coach these guys, but probably more so than any team that I've had in my 33 years at Madison Central, we did life together with these guys. And I think that's what makes it so special to win a state championship with this bunch, because we did go through a lot together, both on the floor and off the floor. And we're still doing life with some of them right now. We're trying our best. So once again, I want to congratulate all the other inductees tonight, but we really appreciate this. Thank you.
Congrats, 2012-2013 Madison Central basketball team. That's awesome. I was around for 1987 when we went for the first time. Now, I was a really good JV/manager / I just kind of helped a little bit here and there. But, yeah, we made it to the semifinals that year. But it feels like it was something that helped build that obviously Coach Feldhaus has made happen through the years. Congrats. Just to give you a little heads up, I went to Kit Carson, I went to Clark Moore. And so a lot of people sitting in this room I do know, and some of the honorees I do know, and others I don't know as much. You can obviously learn a lot more by reading through each of their profiles, and the ones I don't know necessarily, I'm going to point out a few things, but there are some people that I definitely know, and we're looking forward to hearing from them and their families tonight. We're going to start with Benny Roop, and for me, it's one of those things. Hang on, Benny. Hang on, Benny. Hang on. You've been here all 4 years of this. He's anxious. You can come on up if you really want to come up and stand. I just feel like growing up through the years, you don't know about your parents and what they accomplished when they were younger until you hear maybe stories later, unless you have that parent that puts trophies up somewhere and all that. I didn't know my dad played football until later in life. And, Benny was just a guy that sometimes took me home from practice, and sometimes I would see on the baseball field as his son was excelling much better than me. And so that's all I knew of him until later in life. And even now, still learning more about him. He's truly Madison County, because he's been from Berea to Richmond, and he's spent his entire life here for the most part, minus minor league kind of baseball. And he even came back to help Tony Cox, one of our inductees, coach as well. And he said that you were the enforcer. I don't know if you're going to talk about that or not, but he said you were the enforcer. All right. Welcome to Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, Benny Roop.
Thank you, Keith. I'm truly honored and deeply grateful to be here tonight at our function here tonight. I want to thank the selection committee, the board of members, individuals who work so hard to have this every year for us. Some of those people I'm going to name, even though they've already been named before. Carl Park has been very instrumental in all this. Jack Frost. Jack moved to North Carolina. His health actually hasn't been that well, but He's hung right in here with us, and he's part of the founder of this organization. And of course, Leanne is, she's unbelievable, I'm telling you. She takes care of all this seating. Oh, by the way, she is our new president. She takes care of all this seating, everybody. That's a job. Everybody wants to be sitting next to everybody, right next door. And I mean, it's just amazing, Leanne, how you do it. And I appreciate you very much. I want to congratulate all the inductees tonight. Our teams, congratulations. You guys have really done a really good job. Keith was talking about your streak, your journey may not always be what you think it's going to be. I started out my journey in Berea, Kentucky. I went to Berea High School 11 years. I was born and raised in Berea. I attended Berea High School. In my 3 years in high school, 9, 10, and 11, I played all 3 sports, varsity sports, that year. At that time, Berea was fading some in baseball. Of course, to be honest, I was more interested in baseball than about anything. So I'd always had the thought in my head and that maybe I could make it to Madison Central some way. Because Madison Central, under Coach Richardson and all the great players they've had, it's just a different ball game. If you can get there and be with those guys, you're doing pretty good. So at that time, I don't know if it's still like that, Coach, but at that time, you could not live in the city limits of Berea and go to the Madison County schools. So I thought that sort of busted my bubble. That wasn't going to happen. But lo and behold, this little house outside of Berea in the Madison County district became, it was a rental house and it became vacant. I want to thank my mother and father so much. They're gone now, but they've done so much. We moved from the city of Berea out to Madison County district, just so I go to school that 1 year. So it was a great decision. It was the greatest decision in my life, really, because all my Berea people, which actually some of them are here, I had to leave, but I had to do it because I felt like if I had any chance to be a better baseball player, I was going to have to go to Central. It worked out. I went to Central. All the players that year that was coming back was pretty much coming back. The only guy that wasn't coming back was Cookie Witt, and the reason he wasn't coming back is he graduated. So, and Cookie was a catcher. Well, I was a catcher. So that sort of worked out. I can't say enough about Cookie Witt, the kind of catcher he was before I showed up. He was a great catcher. He could do everything. He could hit everything he could do. Cookie was a type player that always around when there was a tough play to make. He'd be right there at home plate blocking that plate. He was good, and I'm sorry, Cookie, you wasn't still there with us, but in a way, I'm glad sort of you were. So, congratulations to you, Cookie. Our team that year went 37-5. We had a very, very good team. I arrived, and on that team, we had the best shortstop in the state of Kentucky. We had the best third baseman and pitcher in the state of Kentucky, and that was in Tony Cox and Jimmy Kane. So here I am, a little boy from Berea now, knowing I knew what I was going into. I knew I had the ability to play at Madison Central for those teams. But, you know, you can talk and do the talk all, but you got to back it up. Well, I'm proud to say I backed it up. We went on 37-5 that season. Some of the players here tonight, which I'm very proud of. I've got to mention little Jimmy Whittemore is here tonight. Jimmy drove all the way from Florida to be here tonight, and so, Jimmy, I thank you all for being here. Tony Cox, Jimmy Kane, Jimmy Whittemore, Larry Jones is here, Harold Eden. There's some others that I thought would be here, but I think we're sick and something, couldn't make it. So I'm supposedly was known as the hard-hitting catcher. Well, I will say that hitting was my best thing. I could hit the baseball. I could hit the faceball. I could hit the curveball. I was a pretty good catcher at that. I had a strong arm. Wasn't too many people steal on me now. And so I filled in that year, and I actually added something to our team that year that they needed. I'm a left-hand batter, and at that time, I don't know if we had any. Well, Jimmy Whittemore was a leadoff left-hander, and that might have been the only left-hander we had. So I had a little power, and I added another stick, or batter we call it, into the lineup, and I think that helped a lot. We played in a conference that the teams were mostly in Lexington. I think it's called the Mid-State Conference. Bryan Station was one of those teams in that conference that we played this year. We played them a doubleheader 2 times. The first game of the doubleheader counted in the conference. Well, lo and behold, Bryan Station won the first 2 games, both doubleheader. It's only 2 games we lost that year. I think they only ended up losing 1 game that year, and so they won the Mid-State Conference, which didn't exactly tickle Coach Richardson off. So we got by that. We had a great year. We got back to the regional tournament. In the regional tournament, we beat a couple teams early. We came, and in the finals of the region tournament, guess who we're playing? Bryan Station. I knew that day they weren't going to beat us. Excuse me. We were fired up. I was fired up, and the whole team was fired up. So we played that game. Pretty close game. Reed Farley was the pitcher for Bryan Station. I think he was one of the pitchers maybe hadn't been beat that season at all. He ended up going to UK and pitching for UK. Really good pitcher. Well, they started him against us. We jumped out to, I think, maybe about a 2-0 lead or something. We jumped out ahead of them and pretty much had things in control. And all of a sudden, we could tell the momentum was slipping a little. Station was coming back some. Well, we weren't going to have that. So one of my accomplishments that year was, I think it was last of the 5th inning. I was up. Reed Farley was still pitching. He got behind me, 2 balls, 1 strike. I thought, well, this guy's not a good enough pitcher to try to throw a curveball or something because he'll get behind 3-1. So I stepped out of the box and I made up my mind. He's going to throw a fastball. I waited on the fastball. He threw a fastball. I hit a fastball. 400 and something feet. It's according to which sports guy out of Lexington you talk to. One of them said 400 feet, one said 425, one said 475. Anyway, I hit it out of the park. And supposedly, to this date, that is the longest home run that has been hit at the old UK complex. I don't know, maybe somebody else has it now, but I don't know about it. We went on to win the regional tournament, went to the state. State, we played, I think it's Lynch, the first game. We beat Lynch. Second game, we played Bowling Green. Bowling Green had a pitcher that was outstanding. We didn't do anything with him. We had one of those days in sports that, you know, you're the best team, but it just don't go right. Didn't go right that day, and we got beat the second game in the state tournament. I was around these guys that had so much attention. They had scouts all there all the time with Kane and Cox. About every game we played, there would be a scout there looking at them. And I think me being on that team and being around that got me enough attention that eventually it sort of looked around at me a little. And after I played my senior year, I signed a minor league contract with the Detroit Tigers. I played 2 years, come back home after 2 years, went to EKU to continue my education. And at that time, Detroit had a surplus bonus, I guess you'd call it, that if you went back to school, they would furnish 6 or 8 semesters of your school. So I went to college pretty much no cost from that. It's been an emotional time. This is an emotional time. All these guys we played all this time with are still right around here, local friends. We have a group at Tuesday, we meet and eat breakfast. There's 16 or 18 of us that still meet and eat breakfast together, shoot the bull, you know, tell a bunch of lies, you know how that goes. So my journey ended there. I can't thank the committee. Thank you for you've been doing this so long, and I'm just so proud to be here with you tonight. Thank you.
I'll just tell you, too, this is being live streamed, by the way, on WBON TV here in Richmond. It stays up, right, Gage? It stays up after the fact. Is that right? Facebook for about a month. YouTube, it's up forever. So go to WBON on YouTube. You can watch this all over again, and you can share it. All right, our next inductee actually is already in once because you saw the teams come through, and so he had the chance to go in 2023 with the 1982 Madison Central baseball team, the one that went 40-0, won the state championship, was declared national champions. I definitely remember I was in middle school at the time at Clark Moore, and Miss Bolin, who's here tonight somewhere, there she is. I was in her science class, and she actually turned on the radio and let us listen to I think it was the first game. I don't think it was that because it was during the school day, and let us listen to the team. So I only got to listen for that short bit of time that I was in there, but it brings back memories every time of this team. And then the remarkable thing about Jeff Cruse, 24 consecutive wins on the mound. 3 straight Final Four state tournament appearances. So Jeff Cruse, welcome to the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame.
Okay, first, I would like to, I would like to thank the committee, certainly congratulate the 2026 class, and honored to be in that class with you. I'm humbled beyond words when I think of some of the people that's already come in this class. You hear the name Earl Combs, Roy Kidd, Ralph Hacker, Tony Cox, Jimmy Kane, and so many others, and I've left so many out. But frankly, the only reason I'm standing up here is so much support that I've had in my life, from coaches to players to family. Frankly, I happen to believe I was born at the right time, in the right place, and with the right family. And speaking of family, my dad gave so much of his energy and time to me personally, and my mom, I got her fierce competitive spirit like no other. And if you know my mom, you know what I'm talking about. And I have 10 brothers and sisters. Some of them are here. Thank you for coming. And all of them are great athletes in their own right. And all of that, my mom, dad, brothers and sisters, we were an athletic family, a sports-minded family, and that really set the competitiveness and foundation for me to always compete and always get better. And let me tell a story about competing. Throughout my life, people have asked me, Jeff, why are you so competitive? And I said, well, I was raised in a family. There was 11 kids, 2 parents. You had to compete to get a seat at the dinner table. And if you think that was something, try to get a seat when there was a good TV show on. That was even harder. If that was enough, I want you to consider the coaches that I've had throughout my life. Really a who's who of coaches in Madison County. The first one, Kirksville Elementary School. And I won't say his name yet. But Kirksville, in the 70s, was a time when when sports was still in the elementary schools. It was just transitioning to middle schools. So at Kirksville, when I was there, you had 1st to the 7th grade. And you could try out for the baseball team or any sports team in the 5th grade. Well, I was playing baseball. And one day I come home and my dad asked me, how was it going? Because he'd been my coach in other aspects. I said, well, Dad, I think it's going pretty good, but there's this weird thing that happens. I said, after practice, the coach, who was the PE coach, the baseball coach, the basketball coach, the football coach, I said, he says, Cruse, get on the mound, everyone else out in left field. And if you've ever been to the old Kirksville school, there was no home run fence. It just sort of went on and on. And I would try to throw the ball by him. I said, but Dad, I've never seen a ball hit so hard. I hear it when it goes by me in left field. And he smiled at me. He said, well, Dad, or he said, son, don't you know who your coach is? I said, that's Jimmy Kane, one of the greatest hitters ever to come out of Madison County. So that was a bit of an epiphany for me. One of my other coaches at Foley Middle School, 8th grade, Billy Wells. Billy only coached me 1 year, but we developed a lifelong relationship. He taught me so much about life and mentored me in a lot of ways. And I was fortunate enough for him to be the coach in 1982 on the Richmond American Legion World Series team as well. So kudos to Billy. From there, I went to Madison Central. Everybody knows Don Richardson, Jimmy Whitaker. In Leanne, I know Don had a lot of one-liners. I have a story I'm going to tell. It's a bit of a one-liner. Coach Richardson used to come and get me out of class. I won't name the class, but routinely. Talk to me in the hallway until class was done, the bell rang, the teacher came out, handed me my books, and sort of looked at me crossways. But he did most of the talking. I smiled, commented every now and then, but he always left me with one message, and that was living a clean life. The first time he said that, I didn't think too much about it. The second time I heard living a clean life, it got my attention. The third time he said it, I'm like, oh my God, what does he know? Until I started hearing it from some of the other players. So it was a relief that he was giving the same message to a lot of other people. And finally, when I went to Eastern, I had the pleasure of being coached by the legendary Jim Ward, the greatest baseball mind I know. He knew more in his little pinky than I ever knew about baseball. Just incredible. So I'm so grateful for all those coaches, and that's really a who's who when you think of Madison County. And I'm grateful for all the great athletes and the great teams I've been a part of. Just consider these teams I've been a part of in Madison County. 1978, a lot of people don't know this. 14, 15-year-olds in Berea Senior League won the state championship. Keith mentioned the 81, 82, 83 Madison Central teams. And in 82, we used to sort of halfway joke, but serious, that the second best team in the state was sitting on the bench, our bench, and we almost proved that in 1983. And then, of course, I went on and played for Eastern, competed in the NCAA tournament three out of the 4 years. Coach Ward just compiled an outstanding team and all that. And as I said before, I was born at the right time, in the right place, and with the right family. Thank you.
Again, I worked in Louisville for about 13 years, and I first met Larry French at Meade County High School because that was one of the teams that we covered. Nicest gentleman that you'd ever meet, especially on the sideline, you know, just kind of quiet talking to him. Of course, it turned on when it came time to coach football. 54 years of coaching. 381 wins. That ranks third all time. He's coached a lot of places around here in central Kentucky, Mercer County, Lincoln County, Southwestern. Won 2 straight state championships at Boyle County. He found out he was going to be in this Hall of Fame, and unfortunately we lost him earlier this year. Here to accept his award, his wife Connie. Welcome into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame.
I'm not the talker that my husband was. He never needed notes. He popped them off just easy as he could. But thank you for honoring Larry with his induction into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. Larry was born and raised in Berea, and he graduated from Eastern, like somebody else said, twice. So it's all Madison County. And it takes a village to raise a child, and this community raised a wonderful man that was strong in his faith and gifted with working with young men and young coaches. There are lots of coaches in this state that he's raised, plus an awful lot of kids, an awful lot. Larry was blessed with many honors and awards, as you read, during his time. But he always said that he never won a game, and he lived that way. He said it was the players, the assistant coaches, and the community that won those games. It takes all those. Those are some of you trying to win games. You've got to have the community, the coaches, the school, you've got to have them all, and the kids. He took some kids that didn't have talent and did many amazing things with them. Our family's grateful for this special honor and for the opportunity to celebrate Larry's life and legacy. And thank you to several friends of Larry's that have come tonight that I feel honored and we're so pleased. Thank you.
My mom was telling me that she had Damien Harris in 5th grade, and she said there were 2 things she remembered the most about him. First off, that he was one of the nicest kids, was a yes sir, yes ma'am, all of that. And then the other thing she remembered was that he liked to go out. He couldn't wait to get out for recess, and he wanted to play football, and she said all the teachers knew he was going to be something because of how fast he was out there on the field against the other kids that were out there. One of the funny stories that always comes to my mind, and I'm not sure, this may be on YouTube, I'm not sure, but during his signing, we were all over there, we're waiting to find out if he's going to Kentucky or not. And I didn't go, but our photographer went over there and he set up a mic. Well, I don't think that anybody really knew we could hear what was being said. You all know I worked at one time with Alan Cutler, who can be pretty confident and, you know, pretty brash. And so Damien's mom looked up and goes, "Oh my gosh, it's Alan Cutler." I think Damien was just in his head, like trying to, like, you know, figure out what he was going to say and who he was going to pick, and he goes, "Who?" Which made us all laugh really big because, you know, he didn't know who Alan Cutler was. But anyway, Damien Harris could not be here. Unfortunately, he had another engagement to get to today. So Brian Smoot is going to come up and talk for us. Damien Harris, welcome into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame.
Good evening. Tonight I have the honor of accepting an incredible recognition on behalf of Damien Harris, who unfortunately could not be here in person. Damien wanted me to express how humbled and grateful he is to be inducted into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. For Damien, this honor is far more than statistics, trophies, or accomplishments or that he's had on the football field. Madison County is home to him. It's where his journey began, where his character was developed and shaped, and where countless people poured into his life long before the world knew his name. From the youth fields of Madison County to Friday nights under the lights at Madison Southern High School, Damien carried with him the values of hard work, discipline, humility, and perseverance. Those same values led him to tremendous success at the University of Alabama and later into the National Football League. But if you ask Damien what matters most, he would tell you that it's never about the individual recognition. It's always been representing his family, his teammates, and the community that he came from. One thing that Damien has always believed is that success means very little if you don't use it to help others. That belief is exactly why he created the Heart of Harris Foundation. And through this foundation, there's a free youth football camp that he puts on every year here in Madison County. Damien stayed committed to giving back to the same community that helped raise him. Those camps are about much more than just football itself. They're about mentorship, encouragement, leadership, and showing young people from Madison County that their dreams are possible too. Even after reaching the highest levels of football, Damien has never forgotten where he come from. He continues to invest time and energy and his heart into the youth of this community because Richmond and Madison County will always be a part of who he is. Damien would want to thank everyone who ever coached him, challenged him, taught him, and every teammate that battled beside him, each fan who supported him throughout the years. He would especially want to thank his family for the sacrifices, the love, the foundation that made all of this possible for him. Madison County has produced great athletes, as you can tell, throughout this night as we honor them. Great competitors, but even greater people. To now be included among the honored in this Hall of Fame is something Damien does not take lightly. Although he cannot be here tonight, please know that this recognition truly touches his heart. He remains proud of where he came from, proud to represent Madison County everywhere he goes in life, and proud forever to be part of this community's sports history. On behalf of Damien Harris, thank you, Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, for this incredible honor. And as always, roll Tide.
William Bill Maupin is one of those that I didn't know too much about, and but can appreciate when I read more about him. And not only that, Beverly DeZarn told me earlier, coach at Madison Central when we were there, that he's one of the best ball players he ever saw. So that's good enough for me. He had the chance to go play for Roop, and instead took his chance on signing and playing pro baseball. So just amazing what he did over his career. You can read through there. His daughter, Amy, is going to come up and accept on his behalf. Welcome into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. Bill Maupin.
Okay. Thanks. My dad would rather take a root canal than stand up here and talk about himself. So I'm going to say a little something about my dad and his baseball career. But first, I want to make a correction. He was not recruited by Adolph Rupp, and he wanted me to tell you that right away so that there was nothing wrong, nothing incorrect here. But Harry Lancaster was the freshman baseball coach who asked him to walk on for UK, and that's where he played before he signed with Detroit with the freshman team, which was under Adolph Rupp, I guess. But anyway, my dad was born and raised on the family farm, East Madison County, youngest of child of 5. Started at the Waco School in 1943, graduated in 1955 as part of the last senior class before the school merged. Madison Central High School, with Mr. Carl Powell over here was one of his classmates. Dad was a notable basketball and baseball player at Waco. As I already said, he walked on the basketball team, and then he signed in 1956 with the Detroit Tigers minor league baseball program. Over the next several years, it was actually 5 seasons, not 6, but it was a 6-year period. He played for several of Detroit's minor league teams and one for the Los Angeles club. In 1961, as a Statesville owl in North Carolina, my dad met my mother, who was a local high school PE teacher, and they married a year later when he was stationed at the U.S. Army base in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Dad retired from baseball to settle with Mom on the family farm, and they would raise the 2 children, my brother Mike and myself. And Mike was quite a baseball player himself, played with Jeff Cruse on the American Legion baseball team. My mom taught physical education at EKU for 27 years, so he sort of contributed to the community by bringing her to town. And let's see, remarkably, during the American Legion World Series or the regional play, we were in Louisiana, and we were playing, I think, the Louisiana team at the time, and discovered that one of their players' father played with my dad in the minor leagues. So there was a great reunion in Louisiana, and they got to reminisce about their Detroit playing days. Now, this is an interesting story about the photo for my dad. There were very few photos, and he certainly didn't have many, but the one that you see was clipped from an Idaho newspaper, and it really illustrates the nostalgia, I think, of baseball. My cousin and my dad's niece, Patty Marshall Collins, who is with us tonight, was a student at American University in Washington, D.C. in the early 1980s. She worked for a CPA in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and she occasionally spoke of her trips to the family farm in Kentucky. While talking about her Uncle Bill and his love of baseball, her boss at the time made a connection. From his own Idaho childhood, the CPA had a collection of baseball memorabilia and newspaper articles. One such piece he had clipped was a photo of the Idaho Russets catcher, Bill Maupin, all these years later in Chevy Chase, Maryland. So he gave the clipping to Patty, and she framed it for Dad's Christmas gift that year. It's probably one of the best gifts he ever got. So my parents have been farmers. My mom passed away in 2018, but we still reminisce about baseball, and including the Richmond American Legion team quite a bit. So as it says in the program, the greatest catch he ever got was her in Statesville, North Carolina. Thank you. Yeah.
Get a picture. Again, growing up here, there are some that I just have trouble saying their first name because it's Mrs. Powell. And that's because she was the PE teacher at Clark Moore when we were there. And so I definitely remember her being a teacher there. Her husband's been through my life as well, Carl Powell. So one thing I want to point out, if you haven't looked at her bio, there were upwards of 40 female students who became involved in sports after she worked to establish the Central Kentucky Girls Athletic Association, which oversaw girls' sports offerings for 14 years before Title IX. And for some of you that are younger, there was not, especially girls' basketball from 30s, 40s, to like 1970-something. So that's amazing. She did that 14 years before Title IX came along and brought it back. I will tell you that her granddaughter is a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. I'm told that tonight, if you give her a real good applause instead of a speech, she's going to show us the moves that helped her get that job. Welcome into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, Sylvia Powell.
Yeah,
See ya.
that's good. My story is going to be a little different from everyone else's because you know the situation at the time when I went through school. So it's really about one school, one subject, girls' sports, that did not exist at Madison Central. However, when my parents both played basketball in the 20s on a dirt court in a little community called Ritter. And there were many elementary schools, one-room schools, and so forth at that time. And it all was great. My dad got to go to the state tournament, was the most valuable player going into that. However, in 1932, the powers that be decided that girls' sports should not be very competitive. And they also decided that the game itself was just too hard on girls, and that they didn't have enough stamina to play a regular game. So they changed it to what they call girls basketball, which really reduced the speed and the energy and all that it took. They just didn't, the changing of the state tournament, the Kentucky High School Association of Athletics didn't even play any more state tournament games. So when they cut the state tournaments, that just about caused the collapse, that along with the change in the rules. And so I always called it was the dark ages for girls' sports. And I, contrary to those of you that said, or Jeff that said he was at the right place, or some of Benny at the right time, I was at the right place, but it was the wrong time because I did not get to participate in athlete. So for girls' sports at MCHS, it was 40 years between the time that these reductions were made, 1932 to 1974, there was no really legitimate sports going on. At Madison Central, there were none. There wasn't even physical education for girls. Now, you remember I'm talking about girls. I went to Central, no sports, no PE. The boys owned the gym. They owned the gym. So there was nothing going on when I went through school. I was very fortunate to get to go to EKU, and I was a health and physical education major. And I can't help but look at Betty Vencill back here because we kind of followed the same path. But at EKU, EKU, I got to play all sorts of sports. My favorite two were field hockey and girls basketball. And we got to play competitively with teams like Berea, UK, Moorhead, and at one time I think we went to Marshall. So that was a good time for me. I was in the right place at the right time. 4 years later, I went back to Madison Central, and I was hired as a health and PE teacher. And along with that, I was hired to be an Indianette instructor, which was a bunch of girls, cute as buttons, that could twirl a baton, could march, and could dance. I could do none of those, but when you get a job offer, you say, I can do that. And I learned over the summer before I went. But something still was missing because still no PE, still no sports for girls. I didn't understand why. The girls didn't understand why. The boys always had the gym. And it seemed something could have been done, but it wasn't. So sports became real at Madison Central, I believe in 1961. Correct me, Betty, if I'm wrong. And this is the way it happened. This is the unusual thing about the story. I was teaching health, coaching Indianettes, fairly recently married. I was just as happy as a lark. Everything was going great. And at the between classes one day, a bunch of little giggly girls came flying in there and said, Miss Powell, we have a question. Would you, if we get a team together, would you coach? And I was looking at something else. I said, sure. And then they started celebrating. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I would have to talk to my principal about that. I don't know. So they ran off, and I didn't think any more about it. Started the next class. And our principal interrupted and said, I hate to mock him, but I can hardly do this without. He would always say, give me your attention, please. Then he'd say, your attention, please. And I was sitting there going, I'm in the middle of a class. And then he said, any of you that would like to be on a girls' basketball team, just go down and sign up with Miss Powell. I could hardly finish the class. And so, as soon as it finished, I'd scurry down to his office, and I said, Mr. Moore, I'm sorry. I didn't know the girls were going to do that. And I said, so what is your answer? He said, well, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. And that was it. And then, this was the kicker. He pointed his finger at me and said, you take care of it. Interpreted to me, no money, no help, don't bug me, goodbye. And I knew that's what he was talking about. I knew he wasn't really interested. Then he would usually follow statements like that with, but you take care of those Indianettes. They were his pride and joy. Just like that, I became a coach, and I had a team. What I didn't have was a gym, a place to play, no time to do that, no equipment, no help, no money. I didn't even have a basketball, but I was a basketball coach. But I did have a commitment to a bunch of girls that I was going to do this. So I thought, how do I do it? How do I do it? So I started with Don Richardson. We've heard his name a lot because he was the boys' coach. So I went to Don and I said, is there any time that you're not in the gym with boys? He said, well, yes, Saturday mornings and Tuesday afternoon after school and sometimes Friday afternoon after school because we have a basketball game at that time. I said, I'll take all three of those. Don't let anybody else in. And so he did that. And then I said, but how do I get in on Saturday? He said, the custodians will let you in. I said, but what about the equipment room? How do I get in that? He reached in his pocket and pulled a key out and put it in my hand. And I know this sounds crazy, but right then, it was just a big sigh of relief. I thought, I've made it. The girls have made it. We've got a gym and equipment. What else could I ask for? I didn't even know where the equipment room was. I knew they disappeared somewhere behind a curtain and went up the steps somewhere. I'd never been in that, and I doubt if any woman had been before. So we took care of that. I had the key to the equipment room, and that fixed me up. Then the problem started. How do we do this? And so I thought, we'll have to do it through a club to be credible to the, to the school. We'll have to do it through a club. So I toyed around and patterned this much like a club that was in college, except there was money and there were teachers and et cetera, et cetera. So I named the club Central Girls Athletic Club, and in this club there were no restrictions, contrary to most clubs. There were no restrictions academically, socially, racially, culturally. Girls, if you want to play, come on down. So then the next thing I thought of, well, we've got to practice, we've got to have games. Where'd I get the games? I don't know who plays basketball. And so it was word of mouth. Just make a call and see if you have a game and see if you want to play. Also, I knew that the boys had this nice banquet at the end of the year where they gave awards. And I thought, well, the girls need to have a banquet and have awards, but we don't have any money. And I wasn't about to ask for it. So the girls, they always came through. They sponsored dances, and one of them was a Sadie Hawkins dance, and that was smart because the girls could ask the boys on that, and then they could make more money because they did the asking, so they got the crowd. They made the plans. I made the plans for the banquet, had the money, schedules. We just by word of mouth, and then practice started. We had shorts were not allowed at that time, by the way. You young people have no idea. All the girls had to wear skirts, no slacks. That went for the teachers too. So their uniform was white shirts and white shorts. And they made little pennies. Betty, you'll remember these, little pieces of cloth that went over your shoulder and tied here. And that designated the teams. Well, the parents made those. I didn't everybody just picked up and did what they needed to do. They had all little dainty white tennis shoes. And so during the year in practice, they had lots of sprained ankles. I think the first year we had bones in the foot broken. But that did not deter those girls at all because, here girls had been in the background for so long. If you wore a bandage to school and had a big ace bandage wrapped around your leg or hobleg on crutches, it was great to say, people always say, how'd you hurt your foot? And they would proudly say, I got hurt in practice. Or, even make it better, some girls stepped on me in the last game and broke my foot, and those things truly happened. So it was a point of curiosity for all the people at Central. They would come after school sometime just to see. I don't know if they came to see the girls in shorts, I'm not sure. But there were, I still had no help. It was a little overwhelming to teach skills, even though some of these girls were very skilled just from playing with older brothers. But boys came and stared, and left and weren't interested anymore. But there were 3 boys that came and stayed. And one of them was Kenneth Ellswick. He doesn't live around here anymore. And one of them was our former mayor, Jimmy Barnes, I don't know where he is. Where are you, Jimmy? Jimmy Barnes over here. The other was Jesse Ward, fellow teacher, author, and the photographer. So they stayed with us, and they were just like my right arm. They were assistants, they were officials, they were doctored people if they fell, whatever. But they took the place. And they never forgot. They came to those early morning practices on Saturday. It was no big deal. The only thing that might interfere if they had sports. So sports in Madison Central was on its way. It was on its way. The most exciting thing I'd love to tell you, we had big tournaments in one of it. People with most valuable players didn't happen. But we did have something exciting happen. Miss Gertrude Hood, who was my instructor at EKU, called me. I don't know how she knew this, and she said, Sylvia, I hear you have a team at Madison Central. Would you like to come to Eastern and play? Would you bring your girls? Well, I told the girls you thought we'd got an invite to the NCAA, but it was so exciting. And then we went up there to play, and I had visions, because when I played basketball at Eastern, I always wanted to play in that big, nice gym where Eastern and Western boys played. But instead, we played in the dance studio that was marked off basketball court. It was so small that if you hit the wall, you were out of bounds, and that was just about it. But you know what? It didn't matter to them. But the most wonderful thing, we played them and we celebrated because we beat them. So our claim to fame was, we beat Eastern, and we did. One point we hit a little hitch because someone had called me and wanted to come to an away game. I knew I couldn't get them there. I knew I would have to ask Mr. Moore for something. I had to swallow my pride and just go to him humbly and say, Mr. Moore, we need a bus driver and a bus to go to this away game. And he said, without hesitation, I was all prepared for a fight. Without hesitation, he said, well, I think I can do that. And then he said, but you take care of, he didn't call them in the nets then, you take care of those Rockettes. So I knew I had a little leverage when I wanted something. I knew what to ask for, because if I took care of the Indian nets. After a few years, 4 or 5 years, I took a leave because I had small children and just had to be with them, and what I was doing was not giving much time. When I got ready to come back in 1974, that's when Title IX passed, and girls got all these rights to play in athletics. In fact, not just rights, they had to do it. They had to offer the same thing or an equivalent thing to the boys. That's when I decided to come back to work. That was the same time Clark Moore's was open, and so they hired me as girls coach, girls track coach, with all the bells and whistles, all the things I never had before. One of the first things they did was give me the key to that equipment room. And once again, I clung to it, and when I opened it up, I was amazed because it was twice what I'd had all those years before at the high school. We had a great physical education program, and our whatever we asked for, Bobby Harris helped me with the PE, Lawrence Bailey. I actually had an assistant, was my assistant coach, and I had the key to the equipment room, and so all was well. At that time, in 74 is when the district tournament started back, leading up to the state tournament game for girls. And I talked to a fellow coach, and he had been to the game. And I hadn't, and I was all excited. I said, what do you think about that? Wasn't that wonderful that girls were playing in the district tournament? And he burst my bubble by saying it was boring. It was too slow. And I felt the hair stand up on my head. Wisely, I didn't say anything. I just went, And I learned one thing right then. I knew this man knew a lot about basketball, but he didn't know the first thing about girls. But because I knew they would have the fight to come back and be excellent players, as you well know that they are now. The time I was off, a lady by the name of Lolly Hissom, and then I think Jane Burkett, took the place of CJC, so it continued to go on until 1974. So from this humble beginning in white shorts and tennis shoes and a penny on, we have this robust, extensive number of sports at Madison Central. So that's a good end to that story. But so I would like to, one other thing I remember, and I just heard recently, girls going to be even more excited. This year, pickleball will be added to the number of sports, also flag football, so that gives even more choices for girls. So I'd just like to say thank you for all of you that remembered the very humble beginnings of basketball and sports at Madison Central. I couldn't thank all of you enough, but I especially appreciate the girls that settled for last, and I think enjoyed it more in those early days. So thank you to those of you that have supported girls' sports all along and continue to do that. There's also something else to mention where that's concerned. It's so many opportunities to go beyond high school and college as a career for sports. So encourage your girls to take those leadership roles because they're out there for the taking now. And of course, I think the most important of all is the coaches because that bond between coach and its students just can't be broken. Coaching has its many headaches and heartaches. It has its sad times that are quickly forgotten, but it has its joys and the wonderful memories that are never forgotten. Just ask those girls from CGAC because they remember. So thank you all for what you have done, and thank you for listening to my story. I didn't have anything to offer. I didn't have any trophies, and neither did they, but there's nobody that had more fun. Oh, I almost forgot. Girls, if you choose to be a coach, one thing you don't have to worry about, you're going to always have a key to the equipment room. Thank you very much.
This way, we'll get
Oh.
the picture. So my mom is from Hazard. I started out my career in Hazard, a small TV station down there, so I had always heard the name Goebel Ritter, but I didn't realize he was from Richmond until I saw this name come out for this, and the fact that he was a graduate of Madison-Model. I don't want to steal all the thunder from Alex as he comes up here, but, I mean, just to see what he did through his Marine Corps service, to be awarded 2 Purple Hearts, Oak Leaf Clusters for Valor, it's amazing. And then again, being at Hazard High School for all those years and leading them to Sweet 16 appearances and the 1955 state basketball title. Here to accept on his behalf is his son-in-law, Alex Baker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Members of the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame Board of Directors, fellow honorees, and their families, and ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to stand here tonight on behalf of my wife, Suzanne, and share a few words about our father, Goebel Tex Ritter. We offer our sincere thanks to the members of the board for this recognition of Goebel's remarkable contributions to the legacy of athletic excellence that this hall represents. As noted in the program, Goebel was a native of Richmond, born over a century ago in 1924. He grew up here with his sisters, Christine and Frankie, and had very little in the way of toys when he was growing up. In a 2000 interview with Community Service in Letcher County, he said, "The only thing I had to play with when I was growing up was a ball, and I played with it constantly." That ball foreshadowed what would become the guiding force in his life. He earned a football scholarship to Eastern, but like so many young men in the early 1940s, his education was interrupted by World War II. He later recalled leaving Richmond with 9 other boys, as he called them, and traveled to San Diego, California, for basic training with the United States Marine Corps. Before long, he was shipped out to the Pacific, to Guam and Iwo Jima, where he fought in some of the toughest battles in the war. He was on the beach at Iwo Jima when the American flag was raised on Mount Suribachi, the moment which was later made famous by the photography memorialized at the Marine Corps Memorial in Washington, D.C. He said that he looked at that the flag looked so small from where he stood, at first he couldn't tell whether it was their flag or ours. And he was wounded a second time while he was on Iwo Jima during the assault, and he was awarded a second Purple Heart. He was evacuated and returned to San Diego for treatment. After his recovery, he was preparing to deploy for the planned invasion of Japan. But after the dropping of the atomic bomb and the war ended, Goebel and millions of other service members were sent back home. Goebel returned to Richmond, turning down scholarship offers to Penn State University and other larger schools so he could stay closer to home, be with his mother, and he finished at Eastern Kentucky University. He was an exceptional all-around athlete, lettering in golf, track and field, baseball, and of course basketball. He graduated in 1948, earning little All-American honors and All-Kentucky Intercollegiate Athletic Conference recognition in 1942, and then again from 1946 to 1948. Goebel was drafted in 1948 by the New York Knickerbockers in what was then known as the Basketball Association of America, the BAA. The BAA later merged with the National Basketball League to form what we know now today as the National Basketball Association, the NBA. Goebel played for the Knicks for 3 seasons. But while he was playing for the Knicks, Goebel was known for his easygoing personality that made him a favorite of players and sportscasters alike who dubbed him Tex. That's where he got his nickname as Tex Ritter, because of his southern accent. Goebel said, "I guess they didn't know the difference between a Kentucky accent and a Texas accent." They just knew I wasn't from New York. Now, the most interesting story that I've come across, and I didn't hear this from Goebel, about his career with the Knicks was recounted in the book Everything You Wanted to Know About the New York Knicks by Michael Benson. Mr. Benson wrote, "Ritter had the honor of the only Knick who tumbled into a snowdrift during a game. It happened at the Edgerton Arena in Rochester when the Knicks were playing the Royals. An exit door leading to an alley was only a few feet away from the baseline at one end of the court. Shoved from behind during a play, Ritter hit the door opened, and he went head first into the alley and into a snowdrift. He shook it off as someone held the door open for him so the snow-covered Ritter could quickly get back into the game. Now, after the 1951 season, Goebel and his wife Penny, who he met at EKU, had enough of life in New York City, and they chose to return to Kentucky. They first settled in Letcher County, where Goebel became the basketball coach at Fleming Neon High School. In 1952 is when they moved to Hazard. There, Goebel built a reputation as a winning coach that exceeded even his considerable success as a player. He led the Hazard Bulldogs to 4 state tournaments and the state championship in 1955. And even after he left full-time coaching, he stayed connected to the game and the Kentucky Sweet 16 by serving for many years as a referee. In 1962, he and Penny moved to Whitesburg. After several years of coaching there, he became the assistant superintendent of schools for transportation and facilities, a role that he held until his retirement in 1992. Over the years, Goebel has received many honors, including induction to the Eastern Kentucky University Hall of Fame, the Dahlhares Kentucky High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame, and tonight, most recently and most likely his last, the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, these accomplishments are a testament to the man who worked hard and used his God-given talents to the best of his ability. But the true measure of Goebel Ritter's life is found in the people he mentored and influenced as a coach, as a teacher, a leader, a church deacon, a husband, and a father. Suzanne remembers countless moments from her childhood when people would stop her and tell her how much her father meant to them. Former players would go out of their way to come and visit him in later years just to see how he was doing. The bus drivers he supervised would bring him beans and tomatoes and corn from their gardens just because they loved and respected him, respected their boss. In fact, the first time I heard the name Goebel Ritter was from my own bus driver when I was 10 years old, telling me what a great man he was. His love for basketball and for teaching kids never faded. In the 1990s, after he retired, he sponsored a small summer camp that he called the New York Knickerbocker Camp in Whitesburg. And he focused mainly on children ages around 7 to 10 because he wanted to ensure that they were taught the fundamentals at an early age. Over 5 years, several hundred kids from all around came to that camp, and never was there a seat not filled. Even today, some of those who attended Goebel's basketball camp will tell Suzanne how much they enjoyed the camp and how much they liked and respected her father. As for me, I can honestly say that I could not have had a better father-in-law. He was the same man in private that he was in public, steady, kind, and faithful. He served for many years as a deacon in the First Baptist Church in Whitesburg, rarely missing a Sunday service, and he never, ever spoke ill of others. Goebel passed away on October 15th in 2004. He truly belonged to the greatest generation. And through his service and his life work, he helped make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Suzanne and our family, thank you again for inviting us to be here to recognize Goebel in this place that has meant so much to him. Thank you very much.
Earlier when we were getting here, and I saw Benny, I saw his son Scott Roop. He and I graduated together, and I was trying to point out that Steve Ramsey was also here, somebody that I graduated with, and I said, yeah, he's right over here. And we couldn't see anything because Luke Stocker was standing right between the view. And I said, I guess that's why he was an NFL tight end. One thing I didn't say about Damien that I hope Luke also knows, hope both know, everybody has their own path, right? Not everybody has to go to the University of Kentucky or pick, someplace close by. I mean, obviously, I spent 13 years in Louisville. Never thought I'd do that. For Luke, it was Tennessee. For Damien, it was Alabama. It led them both to great things. But one thing I hope you know, I hope both know, is how proud this community was of you. For, yeah, you were scoring a touchdown for Tennessee, bummer. But that guy's from Madison County. Luke Stocker, welcome to Madison County Sports Hall of Fame.
Wow. I mean, look at these names behind me. What a blessing and what an honor it is to be included in this group in the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. The truth is that I'm simply a culmination of an investment of a ton of people in me throughout the course of my life. And it started right here in Madison County. Obviously, my family, my wife, and my kids continue to this day to invest in me. But my coaches, right, my teachers, and my teammates throughout the years, without them and their support, always preparing me for the next step along the way, right? And that allowed me to have my journey. And like I said, it started right here in Madison County. 1997, I was in fourth grade, my first time ever playing football in Bridge Youth Football League, where I signed up. I got put onto a team. I was the youngest player on the team, full of fifth and sixth graders. I don't think they had lost a game in like 2 years. So I go on there, and a common question I get asked, just from people as they meet me, is, when did you start playing football and what position did you play? Obviously, I just told you, fourth grade, 1997, but my position to start was far. So we'd break the huddle, and I would line far away from where the ball was supposed to go, right? So as we went on, I was the younger guy. I learned my way, and the next year I started figuring things out. I went on to play at Foley Middle School, and then went on to play at Madison Southern High School. My recruiting for college kind of picked up following my junior year. My high school football coach, Doug Carter, he really, he had, history coaching in college. So he kind of understood the recruiting game. Things had changed. It had been a few years since he'd been a part of it. But, he had me go out, and my mom helped me buy these probably 50 tapes, VHS tapes, right? And so he comes in, I tell guys that I coach now, like, this story, and it blows their mind because they're so used to huddle and rivals and everything is on the cloud. And I'm telling them the story about, VCRs and VHS, and they're like, what does that stand for? So he brings in this metal thing, and it has 4 wheels. He rolls it in there, it has the huge TV, right? My kids probably have never even seen what this TV looks like because it's so deep. It's deeper than it is widescreen. So he has the TV going. He basically puts in game tape by game tape, find the plays he wants to do, creates a highlight tape, if you will, probably 50 or so plays. And he starts sending them out to colleges. The first college we hear from is Western Kentucky, and he had a relationship with one of the coaches there. And I'll never forget, I wasn't privy to the conversation, but Coach Carter had told me, hey, listen, I'm going to send it to him. We'll see what he says back and kind of get an idea of kind of where we think, this thing could go. And we heard back from him, and he said, listen, I talked to him, and it kind of floored me when he told me this, but he said, we would be very interested in this kid, but I think he's going to get recruited and interest by a lot bigger schools. So you should start sending them out and see what you think. So anyway, long story short, we send these tapes out all over the place. We start hearing back from Division I schools, which, again, completely shocked me. I didn't really know what to expect. I was very hopeful just to get an opportunity to play in college, period, let alone for Division I. Went through the recruiting process, ultimately settled for the unpopular choice of the University of Tennessee. Went to play for Coach Fulmer. My tenure there, I playing for 3 head coaches, Philip Fulmer, Lane Kiffin, and Derek Dooley. Went on to play for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Tennessee Titans, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Atlanta Falcons. And, again, I had a ton of great teammates, a lot of great coaches that continued to pour into me that allowed me to continue to extend my career and really prepared me for my next step in life, which was now I'm a coach. So I took a year off in 2022 to kind of explore what I wanted to do, and nothing I found more evident to me was that I need to be back into football. I need to be back around players and help and pour into them the same way that my coaches poured into me along the way. And so, again, you can read the write-up in there about my history, but I'm hopeful in the near future you can add Super Bowl winning coach to that write-up. Thank you guys very much.
He's got a handshake, too. That is one thing, yeah, I said, I went to Madison Central, and at the time there was no Southern, but it came after the year after, and I do appreciate all the schools, high schools that were before, high schools that came after, and certainly I remember going to Madison High, to that gym. I remember being in that auditorium there long before it was a middle school. It was still the high school, and it was so much fun to be in there and to kind of think about the memories from those days. And Ray Vencill certainly had a big part of that, winning 141 games there, coaching for so long, and then, going on to coach at E-Town. He's in the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame, and now here he is going into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame, and here to accept on his behalf is his wife, Betty Vencill.
Well, Ray coached at Madison for 8 years, and he always said it was the best time of his career, and I believed it so myself. As I stand here tonight, or this evening, I'm humbled beyond words, because I know this would just thrill him to death. And, I realize that this honor is not all about one person, because he had the greatest basketball team here in Madison County that you could hope for. It was his first year to coach. Right out of college, he went to Madison. I have to mention John Freeman. He coached at the junior high here in Madison, and he taught those boys when they came to the high school, they were fundamentally ready to play basketball. So I had to mention John's name. And Ray had the best assistant coaches that you could ever want to have. He had Rufus Harris, Kenneth Tate, and her friend over here, Jesse Ward, and if you don't watch it, he'll take your picture. For Ray, basketball was not all about winning games. He felt like it was character and discipline, and about showing up when no one was looking, and you giving your very best to the person beside you. And I saw Ray. Well, let me go back just a minute. I'm going to take you to 1970. 1970, the state tournament used to have the semifinal game on Saturday. They played 2 games, and then they played the final game that night. So that was pretty tough. But Ray was in the semifinal game, and the other team was Louisville Male. Well, they both won. And we got ready to play that game, and they beat us 1 point, 69-70. But here tonight, we have Robert Brooks, who played for Ray. He scored 32 points. He always said, I wish I could have scored 2 more. But the best thing about that game was about 2 weeks later, Madison High had the honor of Robert Brooks being Mr. Basketball for the state of Kentucky. And we thought that was the icing on the cake right there. I saw Ray when he believed in his players before they believed in themselves. Ray was a man of integrity and honor. He did not care about the color of your skin. He didn't care about the position you had. He didn't care about the clout you had. Right was right, and wrong was wrong. Even now, when I'm around his boys, the lessons he taught them still live on in their lives. And that is a real blessing to me. I accept this honor for every teammate that passed the ball, for every assistant coach that stayed late, and for every fan that cheered us on. And I say thank you. And I say God bless you all, and thank you so much for this honor for Ray.
And just like that, we have a new class inducted into the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. One more time for everyone. All right, just a couple of quick things before we totally break out of here, okay? The glass awards that are on the tables, take those. We're going to leave the other ones that you have, the plaques, because those are going up in the Madison County Library, okay? So plaques stay, take the glassware, all right? Also, if somebody from either whoever, your table, you, if you want to come up here, we'll get these down for you. You get these as well, okay? And Jesse, do you want to do a picture?
Well, if anybody wants a family shot or friend shot, I'll be back there.
Okay. You don't need the whole class, though?
I really got everybody.
Okay.
When we round them up over here, I got them.
Okay.
And we
Perfect.
teams, yeah.
Perfect. All right. So if you want to get a family shot or some sort of shot, he's got a backdrop back here, and Jesse will be taking those pictures, and he gets them uploaded to Facebook. He can tell you where to find them. Anything else?
One thing.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
Scott, there's a little envelope laying on the table. Would you run that up here? I forgot it. We want to take just a minute to thank this guy right here, Keith Farmer. He keeps our program going. Get over here. He's done this for us every year, and we couldn't do it without him. So thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks. And we'll plan on year number 6 next year, right?
Yes.
I'm already circling it on my calendar.
Yes, certainly.
All right.
Thanks, guys. There's flowers on your table, and there's a little plasticky thing. If you want to take those flowers home with you, you can. And plaques, leave up here. The crystals you take home with you. And everybody have a good night. Thank you.